Why do you keep buying things you swore you didn't need just 5 minutes ago? Picture this. You walk into a store with a simple mission. Grab milk, maybe some bread, that's it. 30 minutes later, you're standing at checkout with a cart full of items you never planned to buy, wondering how this happened again. Your brain just got hijacked by the same psychological forces that make billionaires lose fortunes and everyday people struggle to save a single dollar. The weird thing is that cutting expenses isn't really about math or willpower. It's about understanding the invisible mental programs running in your head that make you spend money without thinking. Today, we're diving into the behavioral finance secrets that can actually slash your monthly expenses by 50%, not through extreme couponing or living like a monk, but by rewiring how your brain processes spending decisions. Before we get into the heavy stuff, let me show you something fascinating. Meet David, regular guy from Ohio, works in tech support, makes decent money, but somehow always feels broke by the end of the month. David discovered something weird about his spending patterns. Every time he felt stressed at work, he'd order lunch delivery instead of eating the perfectly good sandwich sitting in the office fridge. $15 here, $20 there. When he tracked it for 1 month, he spent over $300 on stress eating. The kicker? He didn't even enjoy most of those meals. He was eating his feelings, not feeding his body. Now here's where it gets interesting. Remember that scene in The Devil Wears Prada where Miranda Priestly breaks down how Andy's supposedly random blue sweater actually represents millions of dollars in fashion industry decisions? That's exactly what's happening in your brain every time you spend money. Miranda understood something most people miss. Your choices aren't really your choices. They're the end result of countless influences you never consciously noticed. Miranda would drop thousands on designer pieces, not because she was careless with money, but because she understood the psychology of perception and power. She knew that every purchase was an investment in how others would perceive and treat her. But here's the plot twist. Even Miranda fell victim to lifestyle inflation. The more successful she became, the more expensive her baseline became. A $5,000 dress stopped feeling expensive because her reference point shifted. She normalized luxury until luxury became necessity in her mind. This connects to something behavioral economists call hedonic adaptation. Your brain is designed to adjust to whatever becomes normal. David's lunch delivery habit wasn't about hunger, it was about emotional regulation. Miranda's designer shopping wasn't about fashion, it was about maintaining a psychological identity. Both were spending money to solve problems that money couldn't actually solve. Here's what most financial advice gets backwards. It assumes you're a rational calculator making logical decisions about money. But behavioral finance research shows us that humans are actually emotional creatures who occasionally use logic. Your spending decisions happen in the emotional centers of your brain first. The rational part just makes up stories afterward to justify what you already decided to feel. This is why traditional budgeting fails for most people. You're trying to solve an emotional problem with a mathematical tool. It's like trying to fix a broken heart with a calculator. The numbers might add up, but the feelings don't change. Let me break down the real psychological drivers that make your expenses explode without you noticing. First, there's something called the pain of paying. Your brain experiences physical discomfort when you hand over cash or see money leave your bank account. Credit cards and digital payments were designed to minimize this pain, which is why you spend more when you're not handling physical money. But there's a deeper layer, something called mental accounting. Your brain creates different buckets for money, even though it's all the same green stuff. You might agonize over spending $5 on coffee, but barely think about the $50 monthly subscription you forgot you signed up for. Your brain treats subscription money differently than cash-in-hand money, though it's coming from the same account. Then there's the decoy effect. Stores deliberately place expensive items next to moderately expensive items to make the moderate option feel like a bargain. That medium popcorn at the movie theater looks reasonable compared to the large, but it's still massively overpriced compared to making popcorn at home. Your brain focuses on relative value instead of absolute value. Social proof is another massive driver. You spend money not just on things you want, but on things that signal who you are to other people. That designer bag isn't just a bag, it's a social communication device. The problem is that everyone else is also trying to signal status, which creates an endless arms race of expensive signaling. The availability heuristic makes you overweigh recent experiences when making spending decisions. If you just saw a friend post about their amazing vacation, your brain suddenly decides that travel is a priority, even if you were perfectly content staying home last week. Your spending priorities shift based on whatever's most visible in your recent memory. Loss aversion makes you hold on to things that are draining your finances because giving them up feels like losing something rather than gaining freedom. That gym membership you never use feels harder to cancel than it originally felt to sign up for because canceling triggers lost feelings while signing up triggered gain feelings. Here's where it gets really interesting. The most expensive spending mistakes happen when multiple psychological biases team up. You're tired from work, which reduces your willpower. You see a sale, which triggers scarcity feelings. You're with friends, which activates social proof. You pay with a card, which reduces payment pain. Suddenly you're buying stuff you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't particularly like. The good news is that once you understand these psychological patterns, you can design systems that work with your brain instead of against it. The key isn't to become a perfectly rational spending machine. That's impossible and honestly, pretty boring. The key is to set up your environment so that good financial decisions become the easy default choice. Start with payment friction. Make spending money slightly more difficult for non-essential purchases. Keep one credit card frozen in a block of ice. Seriously, the 15 minutes it takes to thaw gives your rational brain time to catch up with your emotional brain. For online shopping, put items in your cart, then wait 24 hours. Most impulse purchases lose their emotional charge after a day. Automate your savings so the money disappears before you can spend it. Your brain can't miss money it never saw as available. Set up automatic transfers right after payday, so saving happens without requiring daily willpower. Use the envelope method, but make it digital. Create separate accounts for different spending categories and only put the budgeted amount in each account. When the restaurant account is empty, you're done eating out for the month. This works because it makes your spending limits concrete rather than abstract. Hack your social proof by changing your reference groups. Unfollow accounts that make you feel like you need to buy more stuff. Follow people who share your actual values, not people trying to sell you a lifestyle. Your spending habits naturally drift toward whatever you see as normal, so curate your inputs carefully. Track your emotional state when you spend money. Keep a simple log of how you were feeling right before major purchases. You'll start to notice patterns. Maybe you shop when you're lonely, or buy gadgets when you're stressed, or eat out when you're overwhelmed. Once you see the pattern, you can address the root emotion instead of medicating it with purchases. Challenge your mental accounting by viewing all spending as coming from one big pool. That subscription service isn't separate from your grocery budget. It's all your money. Would you rather have Netflix or an extra $50 in your pocket each month? Neither choice is wrong, but make it consciously instead of letting mental accounting decide for you. Now here's your money move. I call it the reverse shopping list. Instead of writing down what you want to buy, write down what you want to feel or accomplish. Hungry? Write down satisfied and energized. Bored? Write down entertained and engaged. Stressed? Write down calm and in control. Then brainstorm the cheapest way to create those feelings. This flips the script on emotional spending because you're solving for the feeling directly instead of hoping that buying something will accidentally create the feeling you want. Most of the time, the cheapest solution is also the most effective solution. A 10-minute walk outside creates more lasting calm than a $100 shopping trip. A phone call with a friend provides more connection than buying something to signal your identity to strangers. The magic happens when you realize that most of your expensive spending is actually just expensive ways to solve cheap problems. You're not really buying stuff, you're buying feelings. And feelings don't actually cost money. They just require attention and intention instead of impulse and avoidance. Your expenses will naturally shrink when you stop using money as a clumsy tool for emotional regulation and start addressing your actual needs directly. The 50% reduction isn't about depriving yourself. It's about getting what you actually want instead of settling for what money can accidentally provide.